There's an ancient saying, when we're young, we strive to make everyone happy. When we mature, we discover that the wisest among us often do the contrary. Welcome to today's exploration, where we'll examine 9 principles that thoughtful individuals should never abandon in their romantic connections. You know, Seneca, one of Greece's greatest philosophers, once remarked that our gravest errors aren't the actions we take incorrectly, but rather the things we shouldn't pursue yet still attempt. Interestingly, the more contemplative someone is, the more susceptible they become to these particular missteps. In this reflection, I'll share insights from Stoic tradition, valuable lessons that I and countless others had to discover through hardship. I'm certain that among those reading these words, you'll recognize situations we're about to explore. Safeguard your history. The first principle concerns protecting your personal narrative. Epictetus once said, "Former thoughts return to haunt us like phantoms of past decisions." And nowhere does this resonate more profoundly than in intimate connections. Let me share something significant. Reflective individuals frequently err here because they believe transparency about their history demonstrates emotional intelligence. They reveal their darkest moments, failures, and vulnerabilities, thinking this creates deeper bonds. But here's what remains unrecognized. Once something is shared, it cannot be reclaimed. I've witnessed numerous individuals share their deepest insecurities, relationship traumas, or personal struggles, only to have these very revelations weaponized against them later. As the Stoics taught, not everything requires verbalization, and not every truth needs disclosure. Consider your history as a precious treasure. You don't display it to everyone expressing interest. You share it exclusively with those who have demonstrated worthiness of your confidence over time. The harsh reality is that what you reveal in a moment of intimacy can transform into ammunition during conflict. What's the solution? Be selective with your past. Share gradually, share wisely, and most importantly, share only what serves a purpose in your present connection. As Aurelius said, the best response is not to emulate your adversary. In this case, the best protection is not surrendering your power through premature disclosure. Remember, mystery isn't merely attractive, it's protective. Guard your past, not because you're concealing, but because you're preserving what's valuable. Your narrative belongs to you, but only to be shared with those who have earned the privilege of hearing it. Confront your fear of solitude. Let's address something most people won't acknowledge: the fear of being alone. Socrates said, "Understanding yourself is the foundation of all wisdom." But here's the uncomfortable truth. Many remain in toxic relationships simply because they dread solitude. Consider it. How often have you observed a friend, or perhaps yourself, persisting with the wrong person because the prospect of being alone seemed worse? It resembles staying in a burning building because you fear the cold outside. As Stoics taught, sometimes our fear of emptiness proves more destructive than the emptiness itself. I recall working with accomplished professionals, leaders who could command attention in professional settings but couldn't manage an evening alone. They preferred enduring conflict, disrespect, even emotional harm rather than confronting their fear of solitude. Here's what remains unrecognized. When you fear being alone, you surrender your autonomy to anyone willing to provide company. The Stoic philosophers comprehended something profound about this. They understood that someone who cannot be alone will never truly know if they're with another person out of affection or fear. You cannot make clear judgments about relationships when escaping loneliness. So what's the approach? Begin with small steps. Learn to appreciate your own company. Find tranquility in solitude. Because here's the paradox. Once you become comfortable being alone, you naturally attract people who enhance your existence rather than merely filling an absence. Remember, being alone doesn't equate to loneliness. It signifies being strong enough to wait for what you deserve rather than accepting what you're afraid to lose. Manage your time judiciously. Let's discuss something that might resonate deeply: squandering your most precious resource, time. Zeno, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, said something powerful. It's not that we have limited time to live, but that we waste much of it. Nowhere is this more accurate than in relationships. Reflect on how many hours you've spent overthinking messages, waiting for communications that never materialized, or attempting to decipher hidden meanings. Consider the weekends sacrificed trying to please someone who remained uncertain about you. As Epictetus said, time flows like a river. Once it passes, it's gone forever. I've watched too many people spend their prime years pursuing individuals who view them as backup options. They postpone their goals, cancel arrangements with friends, miss fitness sessions, all for someone who wouldn't reciprocate. The harsh reality: while you're prioritizing someone else, they might be considering you merely an option. The Stoics understood something crucial about time. It's the only resource you can never recover. You can always generate more wealth, build new connections, or create new opportunities, but time, once gone, remains irretrievable. So what's the solution? Begin treating your time as the valuable asset it represents. Before investing hours, days, or months in someone, ask yourself, are they investing similarly in you? Are you spending time building a connection or merely filling an emotional void? Remember, a wise person doesn't just manage finances effectively, they manage time even better. Because ultimately, we're not merely surrendering hours when wasting time on the wrong person, we're surrendering portions of our lives. Honor your accomplishments. Here's a paradox many thoughtful individuals encounter. The more they achieve, the more they hesitate to acknowledge their success in relationships. Cleanthes once said, "If you seek improvement, be content to be thought unwise and simple." But let's be realistic. There's a distinction between humility and diminishing your light. I've observed successful individuals downplay their achievements, conceal their ambitions, even pretend to be less accomplished, all because they fear appearing prideful or intimidating. They'll establish enterprises, receive recognition, reach milestones, but in relationships, they'll act as though none of it matters. Why? Because somehow they learned that excessive success might frighten others away. Listen carefully. If your achievements make someone uncomfortable, that's not your problem to solve. As Chrysippus taught, the best way to vindicate yourself is to remain unlike that. Don't diminish your light simply because it might blind those accustomed to darkness. Consider this: being proud of your achievements doesn't constitute boasting. It means acknowledging the effort invested, obstacles overcome, and goals still pursued. A confident partner doesn't want someone who hides their success. They want someone who can inspire them to pursue their own aspirations. So what's the approach? Own your journey. Share your victories not to impress but to inspire. Because the right person won't feel threatened by your success. They'll be enthusiastic about participating in your next chapter. Remember, your achievements form part of your identity. They aren't merely credentials. They're chapters in your story. Anyone wishing to be part of your life should be prepared to read the entire book, not just the straightforward parts. Preserve your mental well-being. Let's address something rarely discussed: protecting your psychological peace in relationships. The Stoics understood a fundamental truth. Your mind represents your sanctuary. Yet too many people allow their mental health to deteriorate for the sake of maintaining someone else's happiness. Consider what's interesting. We exercise to protect physical health, work diligently to protect financial health, but regarding mental health, we permit someone else's drama to dismantle it. As Aurelius cautioned, very little is required for a contented life. It exists entirely within yourself, in your perspective. I've witnessed brilliant individuals transform into anxious figures checking devices constantly, overthinking every interaction, losing sleep over someone else's emotional fluctuations. They convince themselves it's normal, that it's simply relationship dynamics. But here's the truth. If your relationship consistently disrupts your peace of mind, it isn't love, it's emotional conflict. The Stoics taught something profound. Your mental tranquility isn't negotiable. It's not something sacrificed for a relationship, because if you surrender your inner peace, what exactly are you contributing to the relationship? A stressed, anxious, depleted version of yourself? So what's the solution? Establish boundaries, learn to decline, walk away from conflict, and most importantly, understand that someone who genuinely cares about you will never force you to choose between their happiness and your mental well-being. Remember, maintaining your mental health isn't selfish, it's essential. Because ultimately, you cannot pour from an empty vessel, and you cannot construct a healthy relationship from an unhealthy mind. Remain authentic. Let's address something crucial: the art of maintaining authenticity in relationships. You know, Posidonius said something powerful about this. The moment you begin altering who you are to please another is the moment you begin losing yourself. Consider how many times you've agreed when you wanted to refuse, how many times you've pretended to appreciate something you disliked, concurred with opinions you rejected, or behaved differently just to maintain someone's happiness. As Stoics taught, when we attempt to be someone we aren't, we suffer twice. Once from the effort and once from the failure. I've observed principled individuals completely abandon their values, alter their goals, even distance themselves from friends and family, all to match someone else's ideal. They become excellent performers playing roles they believe their partners wish to see. But here's the brutal truth. The moment you begin performing instead of remaining genuine, you've already lost. The real irony. When trying to become what someone else desires, you become less attractive, not more, because authenticity possesses power no performance can match. As Musonius Rufus said, "If you seek improvement, be content to be considered foolish and simple for maintaining your principles." So what's the approach? Begin refusing. Begin expressing your genuine opinions. Begin standing firmly in your values. Yes, some might dislike it. Some might even depart, but isn't it preferable to be alone for being authentic than to be accepted for being someone you're not? Remember, the right person won't require you to change your identity. They'll challenge you to become an improved version of yourself, not an entirely different person. Don't sacrifice your aspirations. Let's discuss something that undermines too many good individuals: sacrificing dreams and ambitions for a relationship. Zeno expressed it perfectly. No person possesses the power to have everything they desire, but it remains within their power not to waste time pursuing what they cannot have. I've observed people suspend their careers, abandon business opportunities, relinquish their passions, all to accommodate someone else's life plan. They convince themselves it represents compromise, that love demands it, but here's the cold reality. When you abandon your path for another's, you're not merely sacrificing goals, you're sacrificing your essence. You know what's devastating? When these individuals awaken years later, filled with resentment, wondering where their dreams vanished. They gaze into mirrors, barely recognizing themselves. As Cato warned, look deeply within yourself. There exists a source of strength that will always emerge if you consistently search. The real issue isn't merely about surrendering opportunities. It's about losing respect, both self-respect and your partner's respect. Because truthfully, no one genuinely admires someone who abandons their purpose for love. They might initially appreciate the sacrifice, but eventually, they'll wonder what happened to the ambitious person they were first attracted to. So what's the solution? Keep your dreams vibrant. Pursue your goals passionately. Include your partner in your journey if they wish to join, but don't derail your path for theirs. A genuine partnership enhances both individuals' journeys. It doesn't require one person to abandon theirs. Remember, the right person will encourage your ambitions, not compete with them. They'll take pride in your goals, not feel threatened by them, because true love adds to your existence. It doesn't subtract from your dreams. Prioritize friendships and family. Let's examine a critical mistake I observe thoughtful individuals make: sacrificing core relationships for a romantic partner. Diogenes recognized something when he said, "The first and greatest triumph is conquering yourself. To be conquered by yourself represents the most shameful and base of all things." Nothing demonstrates this more clearly than when people abandon their support systems for a relationship. I've witnessed it countless times. Individuals slowly disconnecting from friends, missing family gatherings, canceling long-standing traditions, all to please partners. They believe they're investing in relationships, but what they're actually doing is burning bridges they might desperately need later. As Stoics taught, no person exists as an island, but everyone needs their community. Here's what's tragic. By the time these individuals recognize their mistake, they often find themselves isolated. Their friends have progressed, family relationships have grown distant, and if romantic relationships fail, they're left truly alone. The very support systems they needed were the ones they abandoned. Something interesting. The strongest relationships I've observed are those where both partners maintain healthy connections outside the relationship. Because when you depend on one person for all emotional needs, you're not just setting yourself up for disappointment. You're placing an impossible burden on them. So what's the solution? Maintain your friendships. Keep family close. Make time for people who existed before relationships and who'll remain after if relationships end. A partner who attempts to isolate you from your support system isn't protecting your relationship. They're controlling your life. Remember, your close relationships function like safety nets. You might not believe you need them when circumstances are favorable, but they prove invaluable when situations become difficult. Don't wait until you're falling to realize you've severed your own safety net. Avoid excessive reliance. Let's conclude with perhaps the most crucial principle: avoiding the trap of excessive dependency. Epictetus said something profound about this. You have power over your mind, not external events. Realize this, and you will discover strength. Let me portray a scenario I observe too frequently. Intelligent, capable individuals becoming completely dependent on another's approval, attention, or presence. They check devices compulsively, organize entire schedules around others' availability, and experience anxiety without immediate responses. Their moods fluctuate with messages. Their happiness depends on others' expressions. As Stoics would say, when you make someone else responsible for your peace, you become enslaved to their behavior. Here's what's fascinating. The more dependent you become, the less attractive you appear. It resembles a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your fear of losing them actually creates circumstances that drive them away. Because truthfully, no one wishes to represent someone's entire world. It creates excessive pressure, excessive responsibility. The difficult truth: when you make someone your everything, you become their nothing. You cease being the confident, self-assured person they were initially attracted to and become a shadow constantly seeking validation and reassurance. So what's the solution? Construct a life so complete and meaningful that a relationship enhances it rather than completes it. Maintain your interests, preserve your space, and remember that true strength originates from within, not from external validation. Remember, as Aurelius taught, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, not on someone else's presence, not on their approval, but on your own inner stability and strength. As we conclude our examination of these 9 crucial principles from Stoic philosophy, let's remember something important. These aren't merely rules about relationships. They're guidelines for maintaining your dignity, strength, and authenticity. From protecting your past to managing your independence, each principle we've discussed stems from ancient wisdom that remains remarkably relevant today. As Aurelius reminded us, very little is needed for a happy life. It exists entirely within yourself, in your perspective. These principles aren't about manipulating or controlling relationships. They're about building strong foundations within yourself so any relationship you enter enhances your life rather than defines it. The Stoics understood something profound. True strength in relationships derives not from what we do but from what we refuse to do. Remember, following these principles doesn't make you cold or unfeeling. It makes you wise. Because ultimately, the best relationships aren't constructed on sacrifice or dependency but on mutual respect and individual strength.